Are grateful to have the opportunity today to gather together in this webinar with our guest speakers, Jared and Rebecca Archibald. We welcome them today, and we welcome our panelists who are participating with us, and we welcome each one of you who are joining us, and look forward to hearing and learning from the Archibalds and getting to know them more. Many people know Rebecca, who has been part of BYU-Pathway for a while now and is one of the wonderful lead moderators in our career chats. And I always look to Rebecca whenever I have a question because she always seems to know the answer. And I look to her expertise as an amazing English professor and teacher and friend. I've known Rebecca since we were at BYU together in Provo many years ago, and have loved that our pathway has circled back together and brought us here as we participate in career chats weekly. And her husband, Jared, who I don't know quite as well, but I'm looking forward to getting to know him today. They are an amazing power couple together, parents of 5, I believe I'm correct, right? 5 children. And they live in California in Carlsbad. And we look forward to hearing from them, and we give them a moment right now to introduce themselves and turn the time to you. And then we'll start into our webinar.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. It's so great to be with you guys today. I like what Catherine said about how our paths have recrossed 20 years later after we were at school together. And I feel the same way about all of you guys. So lucky that my path is crossing with you, that Jared and my paths are crossing with you, that we can all learn and be together today. So we'll just start by telling a little bit about ourselves. I'm Rebecca. This is my husband, Jared.
Hello, nice to meet everybody.
So we were just talking before this started, and we were just talking about how interesting it is to kind of reflect on our own experiences and the journey that both of our careers and our lives have taken. It's interesting because in the scriptures, you see so many people taking journeys. You see Nephi taking a journey, the brother of Jared, Joseph, who goes into Egypt. And in all those journeys, there's ups and downs, there's surprises, there's really difficult parts where they learn a lot. And we kind of feel like we understand that. That's how ours has been too. There's been ups and downs, challenges, surprises, and just wonderful joys too, as we've sought the Lord through each step of the journey in our life and our careers.
Yeah, and I think if anything, there's some universal principles that can be learned, that we can draw from the scriptures, but also from our own lives that can be applied to anywhere in the world. And we hope to share some of those things, some of the stories that can be helpful to you.
So Jared and I actually grew up in opposite parts of the United States, on opposite ends. We didn't know each other growing up. And we met at BYU. And when we first met at BYU Provo, I was just finishing, and I was going to move to the East Coast across the country to do graduate work. And then I met Jared, and suddenly I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. And it was a huge decision for me. Like, should I pursue my schooling? I'd gotten into a program I was really excited about and was really difficult to get into. Or should I stay and date this guy? And it was funny because my mom said, you stay, and my dad said, you should go, study. And it was a very, difficult decision. I put a lot of prayer in it, and I decided to stay, which of course was the best decision ever, because then we ended up getting married. But the cool thing about this story is I still was able to go do my graduate program. So we got married, and then Jared said, why don't you do your graduate program? I'll apply to a bunch of schools back there in Boston, which is the city where the program was, so we can make that work for you. And then he was able to get into a really awesome program as well. So we were both able to still have those opportunities, even though it seemed at various points that would never happen. So we went back there. I've had various different jobs. I've worked in medical office, dental offices when I was getting my degree. I've worked with travel agencies. And then with my degree, I've worked a lot with students. With teaching, I've taught in different schools. I've advised different schools as a consultant, and worked with college students as well in finding jobs, resumes, employment. some of the things I talk about with you guys in Career Chat. And then the best thing is I get to be the mom of 5 kids who are my best teachers for sure.
So, Rebecca talked a little bit about the journeys that we're on, and you think of the different types of journeys in the scriptures. You think of Moses leading people out of Egypt into the promised land. You think of the brother Jared leading his people to the Americas, and the same thing with Lehi and Nephi. There's times where people are leading people away and sometimes physically going to a new geography. And that's kind of what Rebecca did for me. But all the other times where sometimes we're at a place and we have benefited from other people being the pioneers for us. And a lot of times I feel that way a lot. There's a lot of people that have gone before me where I have been able to benefit the sacrifice that they have gone through, and I've been able to benefit from those things. And so a lot of times in my life, I draw upon those blessings and am very grateful for that. But there are other times in my career where I feel like I've had to be the pioneer, where I've had to lead things and blaze a new path that I've never done before. So I think we're all in kind of different, we play different roles. There's different parts of our journey that we play on. And so some of the things that we share hopefully will be helpful for you what role you are in that journey. I wasn't expecting to move to Boston and to go to a different school. I was expecting to graduate from BYU Provo, but I ended up graduating from a different school, and it put me on a different path, and it ended up being great. It was wonderful, but it was not something that I was expecting. One of the great benefits from that was I always wanted to play sports in college, and I was able to do that a little bit at BYU Provo, but I was able to do that more at this other school that we went to, and that fulfilled a dream of mine. I didn't think I was ever going to be able to achieve that, but I was able to just through crossing paths with Rebecca. From there, as far as what career I wanted to go in, I actually, I really tried to seek the guidance of the Lord to guide me in what I wanted to do. But I felt like, there wasn't specifically what he was saying, okay, you need to do this. But I think there was times where I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, what I was really felt like I was good at, and what I really enjoyed. And so I was able to go to the Lord and ask him, is this something I should do? And I felt guided in that. And it felt like it was a partnership in that we were deciding this together. There are other times where I felt like I was directed specifically for certain things, but there are other times where it was almost like a discussion. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I should do. And I was guided. I ended up going into a career path in finance. And what I wanted to do where I am right now, I kind of had those seeds thinking about when I was an undergrad. And I started thinking about those. So I started kind of having a vision, kind of a dream, what I wanted to do, but I didn't know the path to get there. And I was able to kind of figure out what that path is. We can talk a little bit more about that, but I ended up going through the finance track. I went to a large corporation where I felt like I needed to learn certain skills and an expertise that I didn't have coming out of school. And then I was there at a large corporation and doing those things, but I was, among many thousands and thousands of people. I probably wasn't even being noticed at all, but it was a good experience. And then from there, I went to get more schooling. I went to graduate school, and then tried to pivot into what I ultimately wanted to do, whereas I wanted to buy companies. And this is more kind of an investment career path. But I had some financial foundation at the corporation I was at, but there's other companies I needed to go to get some more skills and experience to do that. So I went to a couple other companies that specialize in buying companies. And after that, I decided, this was about 13 years ago, that I wanted to do this on my own and create my own company to do this. But I needed to have those skills and experience to do that. And so about 13 years ago, right after we had our fifth kid, I came to my wife and said, okay, I want to start a company. And she was like,
I was like, is this the best time? We have 4 little kids, a baby, and we're thinking, is this the best time to take this risk, right? Because with a company, you have healthcare, you have a job that's locked in, it was guaranteed. But we both prayed about it and felt like, all right, we put the preparation in, it's now or never, we got to try it. And so he moved his office into our garage, and I tried to keep the kids quiet while he was on phone calls for the first few years, right?
yeah. Again, I don't recommend this for everybody, but this is something I felt like we wanted to do and we should do. And over the last 13 years, I'm still doing this, and there's been ups and downs. There's some things, mistakes made, some lessons learned, but through perseverance, I'm at a place where I feel like it's been worth it. And so right now, what I do is I own a group of companies. I'm continually looking for more companies to buy and work with them, and I hold on to them, and I'm not looking to sell them, but just continue to build them. And one of the greatest things that I have, I would say the most satisfactory thing about my job is finding really good people, whether it's in these companies or whatever, or finding them outside and putting them in the right place, giving them a great opportunity and seeing them grow. That's probably one of the greatest things that I love about my job. So it's been fun and looking forward. I feel like I'm not even, at the end of my career. I feel like I'm like about halfway through.
Wonderful. It's so fun to have you introduce yourselves today, and it's good to hear your path and to see how the Lord has been by your side, walking along, guiding and directing you. And I think that it's a lot easier to see that in the rear view mirror, as you've said things like, we didn't expect this, or this was a dream that was fulfilled that I didn't know that would happen, or that, sometimes the Lord's plan, actually all the time, when it's the Lord's plan, his way, it's always better than what we could have dreamt up on our own. So you're a great example of that. As far as the next portion of this webinar, we will look forward to our panelists asking questions and getting in queue for their question for the Archibalds. And I also invite anyone who is here with us today to write in a question that they may have that they would like to have inserted and ask the Archibalds as we are visiting and learning from them. So I'll be able to moderate the chat box as long as you are willing to write in some of your questions. So with that, we will turn the time over to our panelists and to the Archibalds.
Great. All right, well, let's start with you, Oyedokan.
Oyedokan,
Okay.
you can start.
Okay,
Yep.
it's Oyedokan.
Oyedokan.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Benjamin, or whoever corrected me.
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest challenges I feel some students always experience is building meaningful connections. So I want to ask you, people that have built connections with you for the past years, like someone that does not know you, and they want to build a connection with you, what are the ways, or should I say, what method of connection do you find useful, or what advice, depending on the connection people have tried to build with you, what advice will you give to students on, okay, if you want to build connections with someone, this is what you should do, this is what you should not do? What are the advice you're going to give to students that are trying to build meaningful connection with people? A lot of them, I've seen people that have done well, that have good big companies over here, and I'd be like, how do I communicate with them? How do I sell myself? How do I walk up? I'm confused. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want them to feel like she's stalking me. So what advice are you going to give to students that want to build meaningful connections to people that are in your position? Thank you.
Yeah, such a great question because you're right. Networking is a huge part of getting a job and advancing your career. And all the research will say it's like 75% networking or making connections that helps people get jobs. So it's a very great question. Do you want to speak first? Let me hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think about any kind of connection. Like if you're going to an activity or like a party and you're connecting with someone, what's the best way to connect with someone? Usually it's something you have in common or there's some overlap. And so when you are trying to connect with someone, it is much easier if there's some common connection, whether like on LinkedIn, sometimes you can see if you have a second connection with someone, say, oh, we have common connections. I'd like to connect with you. Or I see that you went to BYU and, you know, I'm at BYU-Pathways and I'd love to connect with you. Those are much easier ways of connecting with people rather than just saying, hey, let's connect. Or you say, I'm interested in this career, or I'm interested in the company that you are work at. You know, I'm working at this company here, or I'm studying this right now, and I would love to have a connection. And then that's easier for that. And I know, you know, when I receive invitations from LinkedIn, I try to see if there's any overlap or connection before I accept them. And so I think that's a very common, you know, easy way to connect with people. And I think LinkedIn is probably the best way. If other than LinkedIn, I'm not sure if you have access to like alumni directories or anything like that, but that's also another great way of connecting with people through alumni and sending emails and things like that. But again, showing that you have an overlap or a common connection is very helpful to break that ice.
Yeah, totally agree. And on LinkedIn, it should show people that have graduated from BYU or BYU-Pathway. That would be on the LinkedIn, and that would be a common connection. The other thing is it's often better to connect with someone more at your level or just a little bit above it. So like a CEO of a company, if you're trying to reach out to them, it's likely they get so many people reaching out to them that you're going to be lost in a sea of people. But if you reach out to someone who's just maybe one level above you and make that connection over a common interest or experience, you'll much more likely get a response. So that would be one thing. And the other thing is if you go at it from the aspect of an informational connection rather than get me a job. So if you're sending an email or a connection like, I want a job at this company, how did you get that? Oftentimes it puts employers off. They kind of take some distance. But if you say, I see that you work in software development, that's what I'm studying. I'm really interested to understand, how did you get where you are? If you have 5 or 10 minutes that we could meet and just tell me, how did you get there? What steps did you take? An informational interview, people are very much more willing to have a conversation. They want to help you, but they don't want to feel like they're put in a corner having to offer you a job that they don't have at the moment. So I would really take advantage of looking on LinkedIn or either people in your classes that have somewhat of similar experience and reach out to them for information.
And one thing I'll add is one of the best connections is someone who has gone the similar path that you have. If you find someone who's done BYU-Pathways and they've gotten to where you want them to go, they are going to be much more likely to help you in doing that because they know the path that you've gone through, the journey that takes. And so they're much more willing to help you do that.
Yeah. Great question.
Thank you.
All right, Franco.
Hello, good morning, brother Jared and sister Rebecca. I hope you feel good. And I have one question. Please, can you share a personal experience that influenced your perspective of your topic, on your topic?
Okay, let me make sure I understand. Share a personal experience that influenced our perspective on any topic, Franco, or is there a specific topic, or just our jobs, or
In jobs, your jobs.
in jobs? Okay,
Uh-huh.
a specific experience that influenced. maybe why we chose our jobs or maybe how we approach it. I think an experience I had early on when I was in school is there was an application for an internship. And I asked the professor who had announced it, they announced the internship in class. And I went up after and just said, okay, you know, what advice? I was a new student. I was young, my first year at BYU Provo. And I said, what advice do you have for, you know, getting internships and scholarships? I also needed some money to help pay for my education. And the professor said two interesting things. They said, you have got to go hunting. You've got to go looking for opportunity and don't wait for it to come to you. Those people who go hunting, and if you think of a hunter, like out in the bush, they're looking, any sound they hear, they follow that for an animal. They're looking for smells. I love that metaphor of hunting for a job because you're just aware, you're eager, you're looking, gathering information. And then the other thing they said is like, you need to show that you have a track record of hard work. And that meaning that like, that you, whether it's your grades, that you showed that you did the work, whether you have a job, that you showed up, that you have developed a pattern of behavior that they could count on and somehow show that. Because employers and teachers want someone they know that they can trust that will show up. And so that in my mind, I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I have that pattern of behavior of being a hard worker so that it's true. I'm not just putting on a show, but that to learn to work hard. And that's been such a blessing for me when once I kind of made that a habit, whether it was even in a difficult church calling, I would get in and feel overwhelmed and think, okay, I know how to work hard. I can break this down. As a mother, you know, and then other new jobs when it feels overwhelming and I think, oh my goodness, I'm not ready for this. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. I can work hard and just do bit by bit.
I think one experience I'll share is once I got my first job out of undergrad, you know, I worked really hard to get that, but then I felt, you know, a relief and I was like, okay, my company is going to take care of me and things are going to be all right. And I remember at one point in that first job is that, you know, I got passed for another job or I didn't get a raise that I was looking for. And I felt kind of betrayed. I was like, I thought they were going to be looking out for me and helping me. But what I learned is that, you know, sometimes they will do that, but most of the time I need to be looking out for what I need to do for my career. And I need to be continually proactive in that. I need to be continually talking to my manager. What can I do to improve? I need to be an advocate for myself. And those things will come, but was a little bit of realization that I needed to continue to look out and be proactive and make sure that my career was still, you know, moving forward, even after landing that first job.
And I think like God, you know, looks out for us. He sees our efforts in quiet. We will always get the reward and the support we need from our Heavenly Father, but employers are not that good yet, right? So they may look out for you, then they may not. They're really looking out for their bottom line and and they may not notice your extra work. So you may have to advocate for yourself and make that known. Okay, let's see, who's next? Silaso? Did I say it right?
Yeah, you are
Thank you.
correct. You are correct, Sister Rebecca. And thank you for this opportunity, Jared, Brother Jared and Sister Rebecca, taking your time to come and share with us some good insights. I feel inspired and I admire the career path that Brother Jared took of buying companies and it feels inspires. It feels inspiring. So I just have one question for you, specifically for Brother Jared. Sister Rebecca, don't feel sidelined, but you can chip in if you wish. But Brother Jared, what that one thing you wish you knew before starting your career that you think would have made things a lot more different?
That's a very good question. I think I think you know, I think what I know now is having a balance between understanding reality, but also being optimistic about things and being hopeful. I think when I started my company, like I was so optimistic, I was seeing only the benefits, and I talked to a lot of people who followed a similar path, but I think I ignored a little bit some of the pitfalls that they came into, the challenges that they had, because I was thinking, oh, that's not going to happen to me. But when I encountered those, I'm like, okay, yeah, they told me about that. And I think if what I wish I knew then is that those challenges are going to happen, and we're going to need to persevere through that. I think of the story of Nephi when he was led to take his family and Lehi to go to the Americas, and they had a path to go, and they were journeying, going through the wilderness, but there are times where they encountered challenges. Nephi's bow broke, and what was everyone's reaction to that? And most of the people were murmuring and complaining and saying, "Oh, this is awful." But Nephi said, "Okay, I'm going to fix the bow." And then he went straight to Lehi and said, "Okay, where do I need to go? And where should I be directed to do that?" And so all of us are going to encounter different challenges in that, and we need to find a way to overcome those. But I think all of us just need to be prepared for those, but continue with the optimism and hope that we have when we set out and do something new.
And just to add to that, when Jared decided when we had our 5th baby and he decided he wanted to start his own company, he did a ton of research and talked to a lot of people. So he gathered information, which is key, right? It's getting the information, gathering research, knowing what that would entail. And a lot of people are like, you're not going to be successful. No one can do this. It's like 1 in 1,000 that can pull this off. Wouldn't you say? And they weren't trying to be really like downers, but they were also just saying, this is the reality. And we were still young enough and optimistic enough. We were like, we got this, right? Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that like, we're still going to try it. And it's that balance of really hope and that belief in yourself, which you have to start. When any new pioneer goes into a new land, a new frontier, a new job, for many of you, just starting BYU-Pathway, a new school, doing something that no one in your family has done, you have to have that courage and bravery and that belief in yourself. Oh, I can do it. I can do it with God's help. Annette, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm so inspired by your story. So for me, I have a question regarding your career path. You've mentioned the different career paths that you have taken from graduating up to here where you are right now. So my question is, in your journey, have you ever experienced like gender disparities, or have you ever maybe working with colleagues who are trying to sideline you, or having a difficult manager who can, whenever you do something, or even just doing your best, you're doing your best in your work, but you don't feel like you're appreciated. Have you ever faced this challenge in your journey, and how have you been able to overcome this challenge?
Thank you, Annette. So to make sure I understand, have I ever encountered gender disparity in different aspects of my career jobs with? Yes. It's such a good question. 100% I have. I'm still surprised how much I encounter, Annette, and it still surprises me that it exists, but I have encountered that. And as a woman, I feel like at times I've had to work extra hard, harder than other people maybe in the job I'm doing to prove myself. And the good thing about my parents is they made me feel like I could do anything. And it wasn't until I was in my first job that I realized that kind of went on, because that wasn't the way my family worked in my home. And I was furious. I was so angry that there was disparity between whether it's race or gender. Like I was like, I can't believe this goes on. And I think that in a sense, rather than beating me down, it kind of fueled me like, okay, I'm going to do better work. I'm going to, show that I'm good enough for this job. And at times I've had to advocate for myself, especially for pay. Has often been a pay disparity, for jobs I've had. So it's a careful balance between being very respectful, because oftentimes the people enforcing maybe what's going on, they didn't create it. But also sticking up for yourself. And I think just working really hard. And it's important also just to recognize it and then try not to let it affect your self-esteem, if that makes sense. Like, if someone's treating you like you're less than, recognize that person saying that, but not let it get into your head and say, oh, I am less than, oh, I shouldn't speak up. I shouldn't say anything, if that makes sense.
So there's a question here in the chat, Jared and Rebecca. So it says here, how do you approach the people you think will help you on your journey?
Great question. It kind of goes back to that networking question as well, is like, first of all, be thoughtful in who you think will help you in your journey. So if you think you want to be studying accounting, or if you think you want to be studying, software, narrow to like a similar interest so that those questions will be helpful to you. And then again, I try to learn from anyone you can, whether it's your bishop, whether it's a store clerk, the person you're sitting next to on the bus. There's often something we can learn from everyone, but more specific to career journey, I would look for people who have a similar interest in what you're studying, or maybe you're doing a job that you would want to do, and try that informational interview approach.
Yeah, and I also think like sincerely like wanting to learn. Sometimes when I do talk to people, sometimes they'll just ask questions just for the kind of to go through the questions. But early in my career, like I looked at different avenues and paths I wanted to go to, and I wanted to talk to people, and I asked them like, okay, what do you enjoy about your job? What are some things that you like about it? What are some things you don't like about it? And you can learn so much just from a 5-10 minute conversation than you would it probably saved me years of going down the wrong path in a career by just talking to a few people and understanding. Because there are times where I talk to someone and I'm okay, what do you like about your job? And they would tell me, and I'm like, oh, I do not want to do that. And so I was like, okay, that's the job that I want. So I'm going to cross that off my list. And so really seeking and trying to understand and having that sincere desire that you want to learn from that will help you, but also I think that also the other person can receive that and notice that, and that's helpful for what they're going to share with you.
And then just to add on to that as well, involve God in the process. There have been times when I've had a question like, I don't know what to do next. And I'll start researching. I'll start trying to read up as much as I can. I'll try to think of people I can talk to, and then I'll just pray. And if I put the effort in, sometimes I've had experiences where also like, you should talk to this person. And I think, and I'll talk to them or reach out to them, and they may not be the person I'm talking to, but I'm in the process of talking to them. They said, oh, you should talk to my cousin. They're actually doing that right now. So involve God, put tons of effort in, and then involve God. Brenda, so good to see you.
I'm so happy to see you with your husband. I'm really grateful for this opportunity and to what you've been teaching me apart from this meeting. I'm grateful. I've learned social capital from you guys, the group chats we've been in. And I'm just impressed with what you guys are doing with your husband. It shows resilience. I'm so amazed. And I would like to ask, how do you go about people who try to bring you down? Because everywhere you go, you'll have such people who want to bring you down. How do you go about it?
Great question. Great question. You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have been trying to, bring me down. I would think about, so everyone will probably encounter a bad boss. a bad manager. And there was one in particular I had that was really, really awful. And for whatever reason, I don't know if he just was sad or whatever, but he would yell at people. He would just yell, and I was one of his direct reports, and he would yell at me in front of other people. And that was just, it was hard. And so I think looking back now, I think I tried to put on a good face. I tried to talk to him, try to confront him about that, and tried to, say, hey, that kind of behavior is not great. But, it was hard for him to change. And ultimately, I had to switch situations and environments. But it was hard because that was a time in my life where I was putting a lot of hours in. I wasn't at home a lot, and I was spending a ton of time at work, and having someone that you're working with primarily who's trying to put you down is really tough. But ultimately, I think what kind of saved me was having a great support system. My wife was obviously a great support and helped me through stuff like that. But also too, just having the true validation of anything is God. Our confidence comes from our Heavenly Father, and sometimes that's hard to feel that and realize that, but that is really the ultimate source for us to overcome anyone who's trying to put us down, because that is really our identity, is how God views us. So looking back now, that's something I try to grasp and try to connect with more. And it was a good reminder even today when I encounter something similar to that.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, like when you have a boss, that's something that you can't control, right? But think about, like, there's certain people that maybe you could tell them a plan. When Jared and I both independently at different times decided to go to a school, his dad didn't want him to go to a certain school, and my parents didn't want me to go to school, but we both felt strongly that that was the place we were supposed to be. And they were saying that not because they didn't love us, but because they were expecting us to do their experience, to go where they had gone to school. And so that was one of those moments where they're saying they're kind of, negative to our plan, but we both felt like I feel really strongly it's what I'm supposed to do. And that opposition allowed both of us to become even more clear, praying, figuring out what our path was for ourselves. So sometimes that opposition, even though it's horrible, really forces you to figure out what you think and want and desire, and go to God about that, know your own mind. But separately, when it's people who are trying to bring you down, I try to limit my exposure to them, right? I feel like, if we have 24 hours in the day, how much time are you spending on social media, on friends, on work, on messages that are either building you up or tearing you down? And the people that tear you down, if they're in a relationship you can't sever, you limit your time, or you might need to set a boundary and say, let's not talk about this. I love you, you love me, but let's not talk about this. But believe in yourself and believe in that God believes in you. It's so key, because there are so many messages that try to bring us down.
Rebecca, let me
Thank you
break in.
so much.
Thank you. Rebecca, let me break in here for just a second. There's been some great questions and answers, and I've been monitoring them, and I just want to throw this one in. It might go along with what you were just saying, Rebecca and Jared, but sometimes when you're feeling down and you start doubting yourself, you've started down a path and you aren't sure if that's the right path that you are on. And what do you do? What do you do in that moment when you've prayed and you've sought answers from the Lord, and you just thought you were in the right direction, but now you're doubting yourself?
Yeah, that's difficult. And I think it's something we all experience, that self-doubt, especially when you've taken a path and it doesn't end up where you think it's going to. I guess I would say, like, sometimes I need a little period to kind of be feeling doubtful and miring, a little bit mournful. And then you have to just gear yourself up, right? Because doubt and fear never got anyone anywhere good. And God has reminded us again, be strong, be of good courage, be not afraid. sometimes I'll put like a scripture like that right on my mirror so I see it multiple times a day, or in the kitchen. I'll read the scriptures. I'll try to buoy myself up with that information. And I'll also sometimes look back and say, okay, I can do things, and remind myself, of experiences I've had that I was successful. That can be so difficult, but I feel like the other people will never get in our way. The only thing holding us back is ourselves. If we don't believe in ourselves and we don't believe in God's view of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would share one experience, like when after starting the company, it took a little while to find the first company for us to buy. And when we bought it, I was like, okay, we're on our way. We're hitting some momentum here. And then the second company we bought was a disaster. There was fraud on the other side of the people that we bought it from. And it totally kind of threw us off our path. And I was so discouraged after that. I was like, okay. And I was wondering, is this the path that I should be doing? Because this is what I thought I was supposed to do. And it was a big letdown and a big setback for me. And what I think helped me through that is I just said, okay, I just got to get through this tough part. But looking back at it now, I would say that I learned so much from that experience, not only to kind of avoid a similar disaster going forward, but also has helped me to be kind of stronger in my job, to have to kind of better my skills and to have more success with our company. So at the time, I wasn't thinking about that, but there were lessons learned from that, by going through that really, really tough experience. But like any tough experience, I was still drawing upon my support system, my loved ones, encouraging, but also just really seeking God. It's like, is this what I should be doing? Should I? And I was open. I wanted to be flexible. Because there are times where we need to pivot. We need to change. Sometimes things don't work out and we need to maybe go down a different path. And that happens a lot. And that's part of growth. We need to make pivots to grow, and to change. And I thought, was this a time for me to do that? I pivoted in a different way, but I still kind of continued down that path. But there's a lot of lessons learned through those difficult times.
And just remind yourself they don't last forever, right? Those difficult times often bring growth, and they will not last forever. Okay, should we go to Emmanuel? Good to see you.
Manuel, I think you're on mute.
There we go.
Good to see you, Sister Rebecca and Brother Gerald. I'm so impressed for your career path. So my question is, what skills or knowledge do you think are essential for success in your career, and how have you prepared for it?
That's such a great question. What skills are essential?
Well, I would say that, so one thing I share with the people that I work with, is there's certain leadership skills and attributes to have. And I narrow it down to 3 different levels. And I think about it like a pyramid. And if you look at the bottom level of that pyramid, I see that as I call it foundational trust. You need to establish this foundational trust with anybody that you work with. This is somebody, and part of this too is having them understand that you are going to be a great employee, that you're going to do a great job, that you're going to be trustworthy, that they can trust you. That trust is so critical, and it can be lost in an instant. So let me share an example. So we work with a lot of people in the Philippines, and there are times where they aren't able to come to work because like a typhoon hits or something like that. And I'll tell you, the employees that we trust most are those that are transparent and tell us and are proactive and communicate. They say, okay, we've had this typhoon, or I can't do work because of this, and we'll make up those hours. We trust those employees. They're proactive. They're telling us why things are, and so we have this trust. Anyone you work with, you need to have this foundational trust. Without this foundational trust, you're not going to be a good employee, and your employer is not going to be able to trust you. So that is so critical no matter what.
And just to clarify even more, in that foundational trust, that's integrity, right? Like you're being transparent, you're being honest, but it's also reliability, that you show up, you do everything you can to show up. And then when there's a good reason, you say there's a good reason and the person believes you, versus saying like, oh, I'm not going to go into work, I'm not going to get that assignment done, I'll just say there's a storm, right? And come up with an excuse. So it's reliability and integrity that are key to building that foundation.
And a lot of the jobs that you're going to be doing are remote. And so that's even more critical to have that trust with the employers. So after the foundational trust, the next level I see is having an expertise or skill. And so a lot of times people want to say, oh, I want to be a leader, I want to be a manager, but you need to have some sort of skill that you're bringing to the table that you're really good at. And that's going to be different for everybody. Someone will be really good at accounting, someone may be really good at marketing, or someone may be good at software development, but you need to find what you're really good at, what you really enjoy, and then you bring that to the table. And studying and what you're doing at BYU Pathways is so critical for that. I remember I took a biology class at BYU. I hated that class. I didn't really care about what happened inside my body. I just didn't really care. And I found that subject so boring. And then I took an accounting class and I'm like, I love this class. I mean, I don't know. I can understand why people don't, but I loved it. And so that was something that I knew I wanted to go down. But even once I got my first and second jobs, I needed to continue to develop that. And even today, when I'm working with teams, we all need to bring something to the table and say, okay, I'm really good at this, and I'm bringing this, and I can help the team do that. So that second level is a good expertise and skill. The third.
Well, and let me just interject with that second level. So learn a skill, become good at something, whatever you're trying, try to do well. And with his example of the biology class, he didn't get a D+ or a really low grade in biology, even though he didn't like it, because he had kind of established a work ethic where whatever you're doing, try to do well. That kind of goes with that foundational trust. Show up, do your best, even if you're not loving it, right? Do a good job. And that allows you to give you more opportunities so you can choose more jobs where you actually do like what you're doing. But the skill of just working hard and finishing a task can go in any field.
Yep. And the last part is, once you have the foundational trust and that technical skill, the next is having a vision and kind of seeing the big picture. And that may not be helpful now, but you will help your manager. Ask yourself, what is my manager worried about? What can I help my manager? If you can help be proactive and have a larger vision, a bigger view, that's going to help you going forward, so that you can progress in your career path. You become a leader and manager, but you can help even at a lower level. You can think, okay, what is my manager thinking about, and what can I help him or her to achieve? And I feel like those things are critical. A lot of times people kind of want to jump to that top part and want to be a manager and have that vision, but you really need to have those other things in place. Hopefully we're not going too much on this topic, but I love this. A great example of this is Nephi, right? So Nephi had the trust. I mean, he was constantly seeking the Lord, asking questions, and he had the Lord's trust. You had Lehi, who was kind of the visionary. He was a visionary man. But he needed someone to actually do something. And Nephi was that one. He says, I'm going to go and do. And so he was the implementer. And eventually Nephi became that visionary, the vision, the prophet, and things like that. But I feel like even in the scriptures, like Nephi, he was a great example of all those things, of having the trust, doing things, and then eventually having a vision.
Well, and he started out without the trust, right? He started just following his dad out of Jerusalem, and then he heard his dad's vision and said, wait, I want to know for myself. And then he started to build that. So just to recap, the foundational trust is like reliability, integrity. Then the next one is hard work, developing a skill. And the last thing is having a vision or being a problem solver and being proactive. All of those things are so key. Okay, Xenia, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the conversation and for all the lessons that you've given us today. There's so much that we learned. I learned a lot today. And I could say some of the questions that I had, yeah, it has been answered. But I'm going to ask something about in the business. And you two had great experiences in business, and you had it for long. That it was not an easy journey even to start a business and even to be in the business. Most of the time, people say it like business, like in the world of business, if you have to be in a business, you have to be truthful. You have to be like tough in the business so you can be successful. And that can also, like me, can make me to fear business, like to be in the world of business. So I'm asking, like, in that way, how can you say, like they say the business is evil? What can you say about the business? Because you've been in business for so long, and someone who is going to enter in the business has to know all the steps for he or she can start their own business, or a good business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're kind of asking, like, the world of business is very competitive. It's tough. It can be very cutthroat and unfair sometimes. So how do you enter that without being scared? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yes. What is that? How is it evil? Like, that is the word. Like, the business is evil, you know? So when you're in the business, you have to be truthful, you know, you have to be much into it, you know. So how is that?
Yeah, I mean, I
evil?
think so. I think there are some examples where people are, not good people, and they seem like they are successful. But I would say, in the end, the good rises to the top, and people want to work with good people. And so I think a lot of the principles that we have talked about today, a lot of the gospel principles apply even in the business world. Honesty, integrity, hard work, helping people out, and having teamwork. I mean, you really want to try to enjoy working with people, and those are the attributes and skills that I look forward to working with people. And ultimately, I think everyone wants to. I think sometimes there's a misconception that to get ahead in business, to grow, you have to kind of put other people down and cut corners and things like that. I would tell you that's not true. And all the gospel principles that we talk about will help you be successful in life and also in business, because ultimately, our Heavenly Father wants us to be happy. And there's really a path to be happy, and there's certain principles that you have to do that. If you don't follow those things, you're not going to be happy in your personal life, in your business life. Those things are crossover into any business that you work with. The other thing I love about business, it's a business. What you're trying to do is help it grow. You're really trying to help it, grow and be sustainable. And how we do that is we grow too. And so and the gospel is all about growth, us making pivots, us making changes, us going outside our comfort zone. As we do that as individuals in our spiritual life, in our personal life, that just is transferable into the business world, and helps us, gives us a life that can help us, help others and be and help serve others. So I feel like it's all kind of one together.
And I do appreciate what you're saying, that if you get in a job with a bad boss, at someone who's corrupt, or if you're in a system, a company where they're not being honest, they are being corrupt, they're, like this company, his second company, where there was a ton of fraud, that feels evil. It feels very unjust and unfair. And there are people like that in business, for sure. If you're in a situation like that, if you can get out of that job, find a different job, I would, because those situations are very draining, horrible, and it drains your power. It limits what you can change. So business isn't necessarily evil, but there are people who make dishonest decisions that can create that environment. So try to find a business or a job that doesn't have that.
And one of the questions in the chat is about being direct along your way, along your journey, when you're asking for help and when you are in these situations in the business world. Is it okay to be direct? Is it okay to, stand strong? I mean, what would you say to to that question in addition to what you were sharing with us about, being in the business where sometimes it's cutthroat?
Right. I mean, you definitely have to have a tough skin, right? You have to have confidence. And sometimes I show up and just fake it till I can make it, right? With that confidence. You definitely need to advocate for yourself, kind of what we were talking about with Annette, and make sure your voice is heard. You want to be respectful to other people, not domineering, I feel like. But yeah, it's definitely okay to be direct.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Go
I was
ahead.
just saying, I mean, you lead by example. You don't ever, lower your standards or do anything that you would not otherwise do. That is, as we talked about, that foundational trust is so critical, and you don't do anything to ever jeopardize that.
You treat people, yeah, with respect.
I cannot believe how fast the time has gone, and we still have some questions to go.
Right.
Unfortunately, do you think we go one more question, or do we tie it up now? What should we do?
Let's go one more question. We'll keep our answers short.
Okay, we'll do one more question, and then at the end of this question, we'd love to hear your final words and testimony and encouragement, and then we will end this and be so grateful for the time we've spent with you today. So yes,
thank
go
you.
ahead with the last question.
Okay, Anik Pino.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity I have to really share with you most of the questions I have. But they have been answered. Let me just share one with you. I'm really impressed with your career chart, your career journey that you shared with us. I'm glad to know you, and I look forward to knowing you more, Brother Jared and Sister Rebecca. My question goes this way. Yesterday, I met with some of the students who happens to face rejection in their job hunting. And looking at your career journey, did you ever happen to face rejection? And if yes, how were you able to handle that rejection?
Great question. We both encountered a rejection for sure. And everyone looking for a job will. So just know right off that that's not personal. That's just part of finding a job.
Yeah, I mean, I think any new job I was looking for, I reached out to hundreds of people and got rejected. And like Rebecca said, it's not personal. Sometimes they're just not ready or they don't have a job. but you just got to be persistent and just keep going. And just like Rebecca said, like her parents gave her this confidence that she could do anything. I mean, my parents did the same thing, where I felt like I could achieve anything. But it doesn't come easy. You got to work hard. You just got to have that perseverance and endurance, and it will come. And, it's kind of, you reap what you sow, and, you put in the hard work, eventually it will come.
And just know that rejection is part of the process. One thing I will say is when I've gotten rejected, like for a job, I will usually sit back. First, I feel mad and angry and kind of like that was rude, and then I'll sit back. I'm like, what can I change? Is there something I need to change to get a different result next time? If you want to change, you often need to change something either in what you're doing in your life, in your interview skills, in your LinkedIn page, maybe even it's the type of job you're going for. Like sometimes I've applied for a job that was way too far above me. So it's important to analyze the situation as well, but not get discouraged, and just know that's part of it. You're going to get rejected, and if you have your eye on that goal, you're like, I'm not going to let this get in the way. Great question.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for your insights and your encouragement and your example of resilience and your love. And as we come to a close, what would be your final words for everybody who's been here today? And panelists, thank you so much. And all who has joined us in this webinar. It's been a beautiful time together. We thank you guys, and we'll leave you with the final word.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I guess my final word to you guys is like we started off thinking about the journey that we took to get where we are. Each of you have your own journey that only you with your talents and skills can take. You each have a mark you're going to make on this world. And I know it's so difficult. There is rejection. There's so many difficulties, but God has given each of you unique talents. And you have an education, which is the greatest gift, the gospel of Jesus Christ. You will light up the world as you work hard. I know that. I know I've talked with many of you. I've felt of your strength and your spirits, and I know how much God loves you. I'm so humbled and amazed by your examples.
And the other thing to emphasize is, as we talked about before, is involving God. We can't do this by ourselves. We need help to do this. And we want, help, and the best way to get that is through our Savior, Jesus Christ, and connecting to our Heavenly Father. That is the ultimate source of power, happiness, confidence, all those things. That is the true source. And we need that. We can't do it by ourselves. I mean, the last, example I'll share is, like, you think of the brother Jared. He was told what he needed to do. He needed the journey, what he needed to do. At first, he was kind of told direction on one part of building the ship, of finding air, and he was directed how to do that. But then there was another problem that he encountered, and that was how to get light. And this is where the Lord says, well, what do you think we should do? And the Lord asked him what he should do, and he used his own resources and thought things through, and then came to the Lord, said, well, here's what I think we should do. And then the Lord just took and touched each of those stones. So sometimes we need to involve the Lord. We go to him and say, hey, here's my idea. This is what I want to do. And it's when he touches our ideas and makes them light, and through him, we can achieve what we want to do. It's amazing, and I know the Lord will help each of you. He's helped me in certain times. He's helped Rebecca and our family, and we can't do it alone.
Your futures are so bright. What God has in store for you, the plan of and journey of your life, is more than you can imagine. I can't wait to see how it unfolds for all of you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us today, and for your testimony, and for your insights. And we appreciate everyone who joined us today. And we'll end this webinar session today by sending you with our love and our encouragement, and look forward to being with you again soon. Have a wonderful evening or day wherever you're at, and come back and visit us again soon. Thank you so much, Archibald. So fun to be with you today. Thank you.
Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all.
Thank you.